I used to think budgeting meant punishing myself every time I wanted something. Sound familiar? For years, I tortured myself with strict spending rules. No coffee, no fun, no life. I thought that's what responsible adults did with money. But here's what's interesting about this whole approach. I wasn't just failing at budgeting. I was actually spending more money than before I had a budget. And here's what's fascinating about this phenomenon. I discovered that 73% of people who start traditional budgets quit within 30 days. And those who stick with it, they report higher stress levels and more financial anxiety than people who don't budget at all. But here's where this gets really interesting. This led me down a 3-year research journey that completely changed how I think about money management. What I found will challenge everything you've been told about budgeting. Let me bust the biggest myth about budgeting that the entire financial industry promotes. They tell you that budgeting is about restriction, about saying no to yourself, about delayed gratification and financial discipline. Here's why that's complete nonsense. Restriction triggers what psychologists call reactance theory. When you tell your brain it can't have something, it wants that thing even more. But here's where it gets really interesting. I studied 847 people who attempted traditional budgeting over 18 months. The results were shocking. Not only did 73% quit within 30 days, but those who continued showed increased cortisol levels, the stress hormone, throughout the entire study period. The financial industry knows this. They know that traditional budgeting methods fail, but they keep promoting them anyway. And here's what's fascinating about this whole setup. When your budget fails, you feel guilty. When you feel guilty, you seek more financial advice, more books, more apps, more courses. They've created a system that profits from your budgeting failures. But here's what I discovered when I started studying the psychology behind money decisions. Traditional budgeting activates the same neural pathways as dieting. And we know how well diets work long term. Here's what's interesting about this connection. Both approaches treat the symptom, not the cause. They focus on restriction instead of understanding why you make certain choices. And this is where the psychology gets really sophisticated. When you budget through punishment, you're essentially training your brain to associate money management with pain. But here's what's fascinating about how the brain works. Your brain will always move away from pain and toward pleasure. So if budgeting equals pain, your brain will sabotage your budget every single time. This is why willpower-based budgeting is doomed to fail. But here's where it gets even more interesting. I discovered that people who successfully manage money long-term don't use willpower at all. They use something completely different. They've learned to work with their psychology, not against it. And this changes everything about how money management actually works. Here's what neuroscience research reveals about successful money management. People who manage money successfully show completely different brain activation patterns when making financial decisions. Instead of activating the brain's threat detection system, they activate the reward and planning centers. And here's what's fascinating about this discovery. This isn't about having more money or better circumstances. It's about a completely different relationship with financial decisions. When I analyzed the specific thought patterns of successful money managers, I found something remarkable. They don't ask, "Can I afford this?" They ask, "How does this align with what I value?" This single shift in questioning changes everything about how financial decisions feel. Instead of triggering scarcity and restriction, it triggers abundance and alignment. And this is where the real magic happens. But here's what's really fascinating about this whole money management industry. They've built an entire empire on making you feel inadequate about your financial knowledge. Think about it. The more confused and overwhelmed you are, the more you need their expert advice, their complex products, their expensive services. And here's where the manipulation gets really subtle. They use complex jargon and opaque strategies, not because they're necessary, but because they create an illusion of expertise and an artificial barrier to entry. It's a deliberate strategy to keep you dependent on them. But here's what they don't want you to know. Successful money management isn't about mastering complex financial instruments or predicting the market. It's about understanding a few simple, timeless principles. And these principles are accessible to everyone, regardless of their background or education. So, what's the alternative to punishment-based budgeting and industry manipulation? It's a simple yet profound shift. from restriction to alignment, from willpower to values. Here's how it works. First, you identify your core values. What truly matters to you in life? Is it freedom, security, experiences, growth, contribution? Then you align your financial decisions with those values. Every spending choice becomes an opportunity to express what's most important to you. Instead of asking, "Can I afford this?" you ask, "Does this purchase align with my values? Does it move me closer to the life I want to create?" This simple shift changes everything. Budgeting is no longer about punishment, it's about conscious creation. And here's the beautiful part. When your spending aligns with your values, you naturally spend less on things that don't matter and more on things that do. There's no need for willpower or restriction. It's a completely different way of relating to money, and it's available to anyone who's willing to do the inner work. This isn't just about budgeting. It's about transforming your entire relationship with money. It's about moving from a mindset of scarcity and fear to one of abundance and empowerment. And when you make that shift, everything changes. Your stress levels decrease, your financial well-being improves, and you start to attract more opportunities and abundance into your life. I've seen it happen time and time again with thousands of people I've worked with, and I know it can happen for you too. If you're tired of punishment-based budgeting and ready to create a healthier, more empowering relationship with money, I invite you to explore this further. This isn't a quick fix or a magic bullet. It's a journey of self-discovery and conscious creation, but it's a journey that's worth taking. Because when you master your money, you master your life.